Thanks very much. I'm very glad that you got to have some wine before I read. Because I wouldn't want to be between, audience member, poetry, and on the other side is wine. You could lose a finger or two that way. So I'm aging and I'm wearing glasses. My vanity kept me from wearing these for a few years. So a couple poems from this book. I hitchhiked with my mom long ago, and she did old-time hitchhiking, which I only remembered from Grapes of Wrath or something like that. She would go like this. So I was cool. I went like this. But when you hitchhike with your mom, certain protocols go out the window. So this is called. This is a couple of little poems called Desaparecidos, so disappeared people. So this is Ma Jode. My mother hitchhiking, the balled-up hand windmilling, crook thumb a fin at her shoulder. Suburban Okie who stops an Impala on Martha's Vineyard, gone with her bag of coffee, chicken lobster, and sweet corn. Here's one on a student, a Georgetown student, and who had the same name as a famous experimental poet, Charles Bernstein. This is called The Unspeakable. My student Charlie Bernstein, strapping curly hair, about to take a step, like Rilke's blind man pondering, fingers at his lips. He wrote poems about flowers, hillsides, the girls he would bring there, and I nudged him. Send your stuff to the poet Charles Bernstein. He says language writes his poems. He says that these dimensions are the materials of which the writing. This guy should meet another Charles Bernstein. Tell him you wrote his books. Curse my tongue. The boy never mailed them, but after he left school, he was driving all night through Texas, and a truck killed him. I met Professor Bernstein once, stooped, alive, and told him about Charlie. He said, and I answered, 2 dray horses champing at seeds and forage. There's another ditty. This is 3 dreams I had, and it's the last is about my first poetry teacher, Tom Gunn, great poet. 3 at 4:43. Light torn by trees, a cafe, a girl, and a gray man. A windstorm must have struck him. Her eyes follow his frayed collars and hair. Then another girl is talking. My friend saw my chilly tattoo and called it a carrot, so I had it removed. Now a ghost chili carrot. And here comes my friend, limping on his heavy boot, the heel come off. A cobbler's shop appears, and I buy the black nails, the dwarf's hammer, glue, and strapping. I work hard on it, bending there, until he speaks and walks on. But as he is dead, his voice and step make no sound. Jane and I share Cambridge connections, I'm going to go to the other coast where I used to live in Berkeley, and some little scenes of Berkeley. This is from a set of poems called Trafficked of Creations. The first one is, it poses a question at the end of this, at the end of this poem, but the title sort of answers the question. The title is, Don't Go Down on Any Bunny. Ski-masked, axe-wielding anti-vivisectionists chop down lab doors, freeing 100 gray rabbits caged for research and infected with herpes. How do you keep safe from herped rabbits? So this next one is in Pizza Hut, and it's about people getting their bodies frozen after not at that time. And there's two ways of getting frozen after death, and it has to do with how much money you have. So there's the head-onlys and the full bodies. Frozen margarita. Meeting monthly at Pizza Hut, the cryogenic support group talks the new technology. How someday a sleepless gearhead Dr. F will cure their deaths, regenerating the whole, now diseaseless body, or, for the economically minded, just the blanched, nitrogenized head, severed and preserved. Tonight, it's the poor who live best, their dispensable torsos fatted like Balzac. Head-only Harry, dreaming to be sutured to a Charles Atlas, orders pepperoni, double cheese, and stout. But for full-body Bertha, the flesh is a temple, rigid debutante waiting for its white-suited date. Veg sampler, please, and light beer. Meeting at the next table, the group, adult children of parents. Backward alphabet poem, 26 words from Z to A. The title is Zero Account, 25 words left. Zero account. Your ex, withdrawn, vengeful, undertakes the spousal ripoff. Quivering passion once negated, murders love. Kindness? Justice is how greed frames every divorce. Cupid's backstabbing alphabet.
Wow. Will you read that again?
More wine. Okay, zero account. Actually, so it's about my sister, actually. So I said, I know you got bilked out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I got $25 for publishing this with Lloyd Schwartz. Zero account. Your ex, withdrawn, vengeful, undertakes the spousal ripoff. Quivering passion, once negated, murders love. Kindness? Justice is how greed frames every divorce. Cupid's backstabbing alphabet. 25. Okay, so some new stuff. I introduce this as a poem to phallic insufficiency. Sophia Loren at the Oscars, 2009. She has brought them, the great tumultuous pillows that turned us to stone. Even now, the Via Lactea of ancient boys, cracked cream and crevice. Taproot turtle crawling through weeds, old trout nosing the wellhead, old dowser stirring the teacup's last drops of milk. So my longer stuff is like sort of murky and complicated, so I'm trying to write simpler stuff. And I'm trying to write like Thomas Hardy poems. So this one's called The Coin Purse. She said, I always talk against my chances, paint a picture of what I want, and show the ways I won't get it. I fill up a room of desires, tally all the pieces there, and then, like the moving man, carry out the cargo. Such freedom. When it's empty, that is, when I see my listener's eyes drop, finding the room cleaned out, the dusty air and echoing voice, then I click the conversation off, snap it like a little coin purse in which I hoard my luck. And this one is called Second Eden, about AIDS camp. Second Eden. The blood their parents gave them seems like original sin. Hugs and kisses, saliva or cuts might pull another child in. They're careful at the park, for carefulness will save them from spending their inheritance, the blood their parents gave them. But when they come to AIDS camp, they play and wrestle and run. No fear of giving infections. until visitors come. I wrote some sonnets called the Ego Anthology. The ego in all its glory. So the first one is a kind of an associative, slurry sonnet about sexual jealousy, but it's looking at a barn. It's someone that you slightly know who used to go around town in Cambridge and pick up old toys off the streets, and he'd take them up to his parents' barn in New Hampshire, and then they would put them in the barn, and then all the people from Cambridge would drive up there and buy them back. But it's actually not about that. It's about sexual jealousy. So this is called Jumble Ego. Jumble ego, like a sagging barn, let's say, a barn sagging with old toys gathered from city streets, like a hidden door handle, a handlebar mustache, your stash of love letters, the love bite you gave to your arm, like an armoire bursting with party clothes, a clothes horse you ride naked, ride until you come, a come as you are party of one, a party of 100 cloudy mirrors that city folk find in the country barn, all the trinkets looking vaguely familiar, like that special poem tucked in the drawer, the one sent by your old love. Remember? You had said, "This one speaks to me." This one is meeting your analyst years later. Service ego. She sees him shuffle crabwise down the meat aisle. Is he that old? Am I? Years after the years of analysis. He grips a paper bag of papers, confused, slowly collapsing inside the black office suit he wore when torrents of intimacies had poured down his gullet. The years of, when he hurts me, I apologize. Load on him the causes, O muse. The sausages dangle above him. She takes his arm. Doctor, remember me? Are you all right? Once he had told her, you're no fireman, and he's no burning house. Now he looks up, the lockbox, the old child playing doctor. Oh, hello. You can't help me. And this next one is from going to the Polish city. It's pronounced Łódź, as I thought. Although my father always said it was Ludge, but what did he know? So this is called Last Stop Ego. Last Stop Ego. The Berlin Wall came down, the markets opened, all this killed off downtown Łódź. Now our clothes come from China. Yet after the mills closed, look, the snow turned white. We never knew. Old Poles stand in the doorways, staring past you, selling flowers or forks. Everyone you meet is drunk. Some guy throws a cat or a baby out the window. Should we be shocked? Łódź has two plans to save itself. Build an airport near the highway, or get tourists to visit the old train station. We were the last stop before the camps. Everyone goes to Auschwitz. Their hotels are full, not ours. We're building a memorial, and we've got the cattle cars. I think I'll move on from the ego thing. So this poem is called Stick the Landing, and it's about those tiny gymnast girls, the never grow up girls. And it refers to there's kind of a famous girl who catapulted, Carrie Strug, catapulted and had injured her leg and had made the final heroic last jump in '96. This is called Stick the Landing. Because they are tiny and gaunt and strong, willow spine and sturdy cabled legs. Because they are willful and drive themselves like sled dogs, the girls grow in the gym, on spongy mats and liniment air, stalking the bars and beams and horses. High above, a boy hangs from the rings, a pocket Hercules, arms rigidly out, face of stone, a kind of machine still crucifix. Yet the muscles tremble slightly, human and imperfect, which the judges note, his body on trial. The girls are pixies, though their hands blister, and live inside a Peter Pan curse, are never grow-up darlings, waving brightly in tracksuits, fresh, unstained, no blood on the leg to announce the woman in the body, they clutched the last month of girlhood for years. In the stands loomed their sisters, a haunt-eyed race of elves waiting their turn, picking at calluses, little Sandy, Chantel, Becca, eager snapping birds. And the massive, soft-bellied parents who slosh and jig at their bony, capering daughters below, their rocket jumps, arched back in peekaboo, now puppet, now python, now scissors, now yo-yo. Yet all the while, the minute failings of a hand or knee dropped the score from the crevice of 10. The judges tap, tap. Because they had once leapt, because they coach, because girlhoods linger in their eyes, they sit there, girdled, the weird sisters. Yet their masks did crackle once and betray a feeling, just once, in Atlanta, when Carrie, the littlest of Americans, hurtled toward the horse, ricocheted upward, twisting and falling. Yet her body botched the landing, tore the ankle ligaments, toppling her back. Mark and stain were tallied. Hopping to the arms of her bear-like coach, who whispered in foreign accent, "One more vault, one high score, and we win." So she ran and jumped, desperate soldier, arching and spinning, and the feet stuck. But once she turned to face the judges, she lifted the torn leg like a fawn. Then it was that the judges gaped and jerked their hands to their open mouths and saw the ruin and triumph of it all. After the numbers, after the ribbons and medals, it was their hands that said, "Judge this child, judge this childhood that broke before you." One more. Almost done. Can we get here, Jane? Like the lead-up act plus special support. So here's an old poem. I did an early poem on my mom, so here's another one, I guess. Some of it takes place nearby. For those of you who don't know, LaGuardia was the very short and powerful mayor of New York. And a lot of this poem is about my mother's interest in having political leaders assassinated. Including Reagan when he shot around the corner. Leopard Man. Mom once posed as LaGuardia's girlfriend and smoothed her way past an usher. She gets gas attacks at lectures and even gave herself a cardiac, worrying which cruise to take. A lifelong scrimmage between ambition and self-doubt has given her a fretful, pestering energy and a genius for quirky triumphs over cabbie, onion, and varicose vein. Working in a museum gift shop, she hears Reagan has been shot and says, "Hinckley botched the job." Was it that, or was it her rebuking letters, each one signed an ex-Republican, so it hurt more? Something put her on a list, because a Secret Serviceman comes to question her. No sunglasses now, he's undercover and checking his notes. Young Spartacus, Gray Panther, quote, "I'd wear a dynamite girdle and blow us both up. They'd never check me, I'm a grandma." The bronze breasts of an Ethiopian goddess almost touch his back. He doesn't see them, but I do. Generations of schoolboys have rubbed her cool nipples, all shiny, big golden pawns. And I love to see my mother behind the counter, tidying up the fossil fish and reptile rulers, watching him walk up and whispering a sales blessing on the lot, a wizard of retail. He fingers some shark's teeth, chatting headlines, politics. "Yeah, and what about his cutback on aid to dependent children?" "Well, he's a stinking lousy miser, that's what. This talking drum, see it in the husk face? Both on sale." Back and forth they go. He schooled in interview maneuvers. She, assuming a man so full of grudges would want a bargain. "So tell me, what should we do about a man like that?" We've all heard Mom blurt out, "Assassination," in answer to this. Now she muses, "Do? Well, I don't know. I guess we could vote him out of office?" Which sends him packing, while Mom sits and rests her ankles, safe within her Old Testament justice and shopkeeper's courtesy. Encased nearby, The leopard man has seen all this. The leopard man, exorcist of his tribe while he wears the skin, who could suffer a vision and kill his whole family, and yet be spared because in dreams he sees the enemy clearly. He stoops behind the glass, a fusty mannequin. One eye points at Mom, but the other is painted too far to the side. His sight widens, and the world could fall within his gaze. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, for Jenny Smith and Artemis Kirk, and for David Gawanter, who I've never read with, even though we've known each other for millions of years. So I'm very happy that we're going to read together. I'm reading from this new book, which is called That Said, and I thought it was a good name for, new and selected poems. But the best thing about the title is that all the time on the radio, people are saying, "That said," especially on NPR. So I always think a little more advertising. So I teach at GW, but in the summer times, I live up in Vermont, and I've lived there since the late 80s, and I went to school there actually to Goddard, the great hippie school, back in the 60s. But my husband and I have a house there, and it's an old house. And this is a poem called Willow, and it's about a tree that really irked me, that really bugged me, that was in the back of our house. Willow. It didn't weep the way a willow should, planted all alone in the field, in the middle of the field, by the bachelor who sold our house to us. Shoulder height when our daughter was born. It grew 8 feet a year until it blocked the view through the first, then the second-story windows, its straggly canopy obstructing our sunrise and moonrise over Max Gray Road. I gave it the evil eye, hoping lightning would strike it, the way a bolt had split the butternut by the barn. And if leaf blight, or crown gall, or cankers didn't kill it, then I'd gladly pay someone to chop it down. My daughter said no, she loved that tree, and my husband agreed. One wet Sunday, the rainiest July since 1885, husband napping, daughter at a matinee in town, a wind shear barreled up the hill so loud, I glanced up from my mystery. The moment the willow leaned, bowed, and fell over flat on its back, roots and all, splayed on the ground like Gulliver. The house shook just once. Later, when the sun came out, neighbors came to gawk. They chainsawed thicker branches, wrapped chains around the trunk. Their backhoe ripped out pieces of stump and root, as if extracting a rotten tooth. I'm not sorry that tree is gone. No one ever sat under it for shade or contemplation. Yet, spring after spring, it reliably leafed out. It was always the last to lose its leaves in fall. It should have died a decade ago for all the grief I gave it, my dirty looks apparently the fuel on which it thrived. It must have done its weeping in private. But now I can see the slope of the hill. Did my wishful thinking cast a spell? I was the only one on earth who saw it fall. After that happened, my husband and daughter looked at me funny, like I had some special powers. Okay, now, I like to write about dolls and dummies and ventriloquial dummies, and so I have a whole bunch of poems about those. something probably about the poetic voice, somewhere back there. This is a poem about Chatty Cathy, and some of us might remember Chatty Cathy. My job in writing this poem was to try to get, I did a lot of research, was to try to get all 18 of Chatty Cathy's phrases in the poem. So here it goes. The first time I got my hands on her, I took off all her clothes to see exactly where her voice came from. I pulled the white plastic O-ring, knotted to the pull string in her back, pulled it gently as far as it would go, and Chatty Cathy threw her voice, not from her closed, pretty pink lips, but from the open speaker grill in her chest. Chatty Cathy was her own ventriloquist. She said 18 phrases at random, chatting up anyone who'd pull her string. Tell me a story. Will you play with me? What can we do now? Do you love me? Did I love her? I loved her so much I had to be careful not to wear her out. Even though she always talked back, behavior my parents would have spanked me for, there wasn't a naughty bone in her hard little body. When she'd say, carry me, change my dress, take me with you, brush my hair, she always said, please. When she'd say, let's play school, let's have a party, let's play house, she'd flash me her charming pot belly. May I have a cookie? She'd sweetly ask in that high, fake, goody-goody voice. She wasn't allowed to eat or drink. It would gunk up the mini record player inside her chest. May I have a cookie? She'd pester me while I combed her hair and buttoned her dress for a tea party. I'm hungry. She'd point her index finger at me until I held a pretend cookie against her lips and poured her another empty cup of tea. May I have a cookie? May I have a cookie? Finally, one afternoon, I gave her one, squishing it into the holes of her grill. After that, sometimes she'd start talking all by herself, a loud, deep gargling that shook her body, limbs akimbo, skirt inching up, showing her panties with the Made in Hong Kong tag still attached. I hurt myself, she cried. Please carry me. I'm hungry. I'm sleepy. She awoke with 2 black marks on her leg and a crack on her back along the seam. A rash of chatty pox dotted her cheeks. Give me a kiss, she ordered, and I did. I'd do anything to shut her up. Where are we going? Bratty Chatty Cathy warbled for the last time. She stopped wanting to play, stopped saying, I love you. Next, laryngitis. Then a growling sound. Her O-ring cracked off, the frayed string, a strangled loop spooling inside her damaged voice box. Then she was mute, stiffly propped against my bed pillow like a fancy boudoir doll made only for show. This poem is called My Mother's Foot. My mother had very bad feet, and I never stopped hearing about them growing up. And now that I'm an adult, I got her feet. So let me find it. My mother's foot. Putting on my socks, I noticed on my right foot an ugly bunion and hammer toes. How did my mother's foot become part of me? I thought I'd buried it years ago with the rest of her body, next to my father in Cedar Park Cemetery. How did it ever track me down, knowing exactly which brick house on the street was mine, never having set foot in it alive? During dinner, my husband was polite. My daughter excused herself to do homework. When it got too late to phone a hotel, I invited the foot to spend the night. I made up the studio couch, tucked the foot in, tiptoed back to the bedroom. A minute later came a knock at my door. I'm lonesome, the foot sobbed. I'm not used to sleeping alone. Whereupon it hopped into bed between my husband and me. Next morning, the foot woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Its instep hurt. Its big toe was out of joint. So I kissed it, gave it a pedicure, polishing its 5 wiggling toenails Shanghai red. Life's really good here, the foot said, so much better than where I've just come from. Mind if I use your phone? I've got a pal who has 1 foot in the grave. That night, my mother's left foot joined us. Now they're both giving me advice. Your bathroom is filthy. That dress makes you look fat. Along with her pearls, her diamond ring, and her gold earrings, I've got my mother's knees, her varicose veins, flabby belly, sagging breasts. In time, I'll inherit whatever's left of her body. Okay. I'm going to read a poem, another poem about my mother. This has a little story behind it. I love to read memoirs. And one of my favorite memoirs was one by Ruth Reichel, who was the food editor of the New York Times. She wrote a beautiful memoir called Tender at the Bone. And in the beginning of the memoir, she talks about her own mother, who was a dreadful, dreadful, and dangerous cook. And in fact, her mother almost poisoned the entire wedding of her own son by using leftovers. But in this book, she talks about a recipe, a family recipe that they use, where basically we had one too, where you basically take what's in the refrigerator and around the house, you throw it in a pot, you cook it. Well, my mother had one called shit soup. She called it shit soup. Okay? So I will read this to you, and if anybody wants the recipe, I'll give it to you. Okay. Other mothers have their everything stew, icebox ragu, kitchen sink casserole. Mine had shit soup, a recipe she told me standing in her kitchen in New Jersey. Find a big pot, the biggest pot you have. Shit a quarter chicken into the pot. If you have an old carcass lying around, shit it in. Add 3 quarts of cold water and salt and bring to a boil. Skim off the foam as it collects on the surface. Slice 1 large or 2 medium onions. Shit them in. Shit in some dill and parsley. Dried is okay, but fresh tastes better. Cut into bite-sized pieces some carrots, a couple celery stalks. Shit them in. Those lousy-looking zucchini squash, withered wedges of cabbage, puckered peas, in other words, anything in the fridge. If you have fresh or frozen string beans, shit them in. Shit in a few potatoes. Peel the skin, dig out the eyes, cut off the bad parts, and shit them in anyway. They're filled with vitamins and minerals. Friday's leftovers, oh, what the hell. Shit them in. Shit in 12 black peppercorns. Want to know my secret ingredient? 1 ripe tomato makes the broth taste sweet. What's under that aluminum foil? Shit it in. A little mold won't kill you. My recipe, I don't measure. I just shit a little of this in, a little of that. Your mama's shit soup. Enough for a week. With a pot of this, you'll never go hungry. Shit in. There wasn't time for me to go to the ShopRite and buy steaks to broil for your fathers and your dinner. Shit in. I'd like to sell the store someday and move to Florida. Shit in the recession, the Second World War, the Great Depression. Shit in, there's no rest for the weary. Shit in her bunions, her itchy skin. Shit in, rich or poor, it's nice to have money. Shit in, marriage isn't made in heaven. Shit in, the Republicans. Shit in, her tumor. Shit in, where it spread to her liver like grains of rice, the doctor said. Shit in her daughters at the cemetery, crying over the hole when they lowered her in. Shit in one last handful of dirt. Cover the pot and reduce heat to low. Simmer on the lowest possible flame for 2 hours or until vegetables are fork tender, meat falls off the bone. Okay, so I have a lot of poetry friends, like David, and I have a friend named Hannah Block, who is a translator also, and translator of Yiddish and Hebrew. So I sent her this poem just to make sure like the tone was accurate or something. And she wrote back to me and she said, Jane, I may actually wreck this poem for you, but did you know that in Yiddish, the phrase shitarein means to throw into, to pour into. So when I heard that, I said, oh my God, instead of my mother being crude, which I thought she was being, she was actually bilingually punning, So now shit, and you have to do, actually you can't just say shit, you have to go, meh, shit it in. Okay, and I'm gonna end with one last poem called The Blue Address Book. I must find it first. I guess it's a little elegy. You know what happens when your parents die, some of the things you want to get rid of because they just make your house look like a hoarder's house. Other things, it's very hard to know what to do with them. And this is called The Blue Address Book. Like the other useless things I can't bear to get rid of, her nylon nightgowns, his gold-plated cufflinks, his wooden shoe trees in a size no one I know can use. I'm stuck with their blue pleather address book. It's 26 chapters printed in ballpoint pen, X'd out, penciled in, and after she passed away, amended in his hand, recording, as in a family Bible, those generations born, married, and since relocated to their graves, Abramowitz to Zimmerman. Great uncles, aunts, cousins once removed, whose cheeks I kissed, whose food I ate, are in this book still alive, immortal, each name accompanied by a face. Fogel, Rose, and Murray, 474 13th Street, Brooklyn, moved to a condo in Boca Raton. Stein, Minnie, sister of Rose, left her Jerome Avenue walk-up for the Yonkers Jewish nursing home. The baby blue cover has a patina of grease, the pages steeped in cigarette smoke from years spent in my parents' junk drawer. Though scattered in different graveyards, here they're all accounted for. Their souls disperse, dust motes in the air that I inhale.